Hello and welcome to History for Weirdos.
We're your hosts, Andrew
and Stephanie,
and each week we're going to take you on a journey into the strange, obscure, and relentlessly entertaining corners of human history.
Now listen up, friends, because it's about to get weird.
Weirdos, welcome back to yet again another episode of History for Weirdos.
Yay! It's been a little while because we took last weekend off. I was recovering, but we are, as always, so pleased to be back.
I know, guys, it is always a pleasure to be here, and we have a few things we want to mention before we jump right into this week's episode. First of all, we have a book review on our Patreon, our very first one. I reviewed the book Tripped by Norman Ohler, who is an amazing author. He details the intricate and amazing history between LSD, the Nazi Party, and the CIA. It is such a wild read. I highly recommend it. I give a more in-depth analysis on Patreon. So if you want to check it out, there you go.
Yeah, so if you aren't a member of our Patreon, that's a reminder that you can join at any time. And similarly, if you aren't following us on Instagram, I'd like to remind you to do so. We are at History for Weirdos. We post some fun, silly stuff on there sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
For example, recently, the Weirdos and I came to a consensus on Instagram stories that Andrew absolutely looks like Hodgins from Bones.
I knew where that was going.
That's the kind of content you're missing out on if you don't follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, it's really funny. Even one of my high school friends mentioned Sarah. She mentioned that she's been saying that literally since 10th grade.
But there were like a couple hundred votes and it was like 99% agreed.
Yeah, that one was weird. I see it, but I didn't realize people really think we're that much alike.
And then we also got that we resemble to a certain extent Anne Hathaway and her husband.
Oh yes, that one was weird.
That was weird because I didn't think so. And then we looked them up and we're like, oh yeah, kind of.
We were like the Wish version of them.
Oh, kind of, yeah.
It's like self-own.
Yeah. And then before we jump into the episode, you have one more reminder for the Weirdos.
Guys, so this one's pretty important. We are taking the month of June off just as a reminder. So this is going to be the last episode that we have for a whole month. But don't worry, we're bringing back some classics during our time off. We're going to have 4 episodes that are some of our favorites that we're going to launch every week. It's just a remastered version of an old one. But, you know, maybe you forgot about it. And these are some of what we consider our best ones. So, or at least our favorite ones.
Yeah. And our Patreon members will be able to vote for what theme we do for the month of July when we're back.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So Patreon members, you know what to do. Just can vote on what you want to hear for the month of July.
Yay.
Okay, that was a lot, guys. Thank you for bearing with us. I know. But without further ado, Stephanie has a really interesting set of stories for y'all.
That's right. This week, I have 2 stories because they're both fairly brief, but they go together really well for an overall theme for this episode. So I'm just going to dive right into it right now. We are starting off in the heart of rural. That's a really hard word to say.
That's a very hard word to say.
Rural Louisiana, in the small town of Bellevue, and it is 1939.
Ooh, so World War II's starting.
Yes.
Good times.
I wrote the Great Depression's grip still lingered, and there were whispers of a looming war across the ocean, and it was generally not a particularly happy or prosperous time.
No, it was not.
Which is important to remember. And amidst the backdrop of this economic hardship and global uncertainty, there was a really strange phenomenon that was about to take place. And that's what we will be covering.
Well, I'm intrigued.
So it all started when a high school senior named Helen went to her homecoming dance.
As a typical weird story, starts.
Exactly. Seemingly out of nowhere while she's at the dance, she's like sitting against the wall. Her leg starts twitching uncontrollably.
Oh my God.
Like a big noticeable twitch.
Okay.
And she becomes very distressed by this twitch. I believe she said it was painful, like physically painful. So the people around her were concerned, but no one knew what to do. So Helen went home to like rest and see if that helped, right? But that wouldn't be a fun episode. So she did not get better.
Oh, darn.
Oh, darn. Her twitching worsened considerably over the next few hours and days.
Oh my God.
There was nothing medically wrong with her. Obviously, she saw her doctor. No one could figure out what would have triggered this kind of reaction.
Okay.
Then, within a couple weeks later, Helen's friends, I believe it was like a group of maybe 6 girls, also start twitching.
Oh my gosh.
Different parts of their body, uncontrollably twitching. And then once those friends are afflicted, the twitching spreads to other students at school.
It's like an epidemic.
Exactly. Could you imagine being in high school and having something like this going on?
Weirdly enough, not when I was in high school, but like if I was a high schooler now, I feel like, yeah.
Yes, I agree. Because this is more stressful times.
Right. Like even like the Great Recession era, like 2008, I don't feel like it was that as stressful then as it is now.
Yeah. And we're going to get to the role that stress plays in this.
Ooh.
So again, I just want to emphasize that with all of the students that started to experience the twitching, there was no evident medical reason behind it.
Right.
No one could diagnose what was going on.
Great.
So unable to get answers from the school or local doctors, parents started freaking out and they started pulling their kids out of school because they thought it was the school that was making them twitch. And this just caused more stress and chaos to the point where this twitching epidemic took over nearly every single high school student.
Oh my God. Like in just that one school or like?
In that one school.
Whoa.
And then as the days here turn into weeks, the twitching starts to spread beyond the school grounds.
This is weird. This seems like it's very prolonged.
Yeah, it goes on for a while. And the town of Bellevue is gripped by what they started calling the twitching disease that was going around town.
The twitching disease.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound very pleasant, if I'm being honest.
It doesn't. I agree. So as the word is spreading that this town of Bellevue, this little rural town, is having a twitching disease, it reached the ears of 2 psychologists who were eager to investigate. And this is a really frustrating part of the research. I was unable to find consistent names for the 2 psychologists.
Whoa.
I saw different names referenced in different sources, so I left their names out.
Fair enough. That's weird. Any inclination as to why there was different names for these people?
I don't know. This case is cited in many psychology journals, many medical journals. So I don't know why, but
right.
They're not always named in the journals.
Okay.
And sometimes they were different names. So for now, I left them out.
Psychologist A, psychologist B.
Unknown psychologist.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. So the psychologists show up, though, from out of town. Kind of like big city folk come in to see what's going on.
I'm from the city here, and I'm here to fix problems.
Exactly. I think that's what they said.
Okay.
And they start to interview people, ask around town, and they can't find a very evident answer for the twitching either. There's no overt trauma that the town has recently gone through or any weird dynamics going on in the town that they could point to. Mm-hmm. There also doesn't seem to be any toxic exposure. So it's not like a muscular thing or like a nerve thing. So frustrated, the 2 psychologists are like, okay, let's start from the beginning and let's go back to patient 0.
Right.
Let's re-interview her and see what happens. So they re-interview Helen, the high school senior, and it turns out in their conversation with Helen, she confesses that before the twitching had started, she was very stressed because she was not a very skilled dancer.
Oh, poor girl.
Mm-hmm. And at that age, you are so self-conscious of everything you do.
And also, like in 1939, I feel like social hierarchies were so strict at that time. So if you like fall outside of line just a little bit, like you're not a good dancer, you're just ostracized. Well, not ostracized, but you're
people would
definitely
tease you. At
exactly.
Least.
You'd be looked down upon.
I don't know if that is the case for kids today. I don't think
They're
it would have been
not good at dancing.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It wasn't when we were in high school.
No, we were all terrible at dancing.
Speak for yourself. So not only is she worried because she's not a good dancer and she's at the homecoming dance, but she's afraid, and I don't know why. I don't know the backstory. I don't know the tea here. But she's afraid that her boyfriend is interested in this freshman girl who's a very good dancer.
Oh my God. I was literally going to joke about that.
Are you serious?
Yes. I was like, oh, is her boyfriend going to leave her for a better dancer? As a joke. A joke.
That's what she was stressed about.
Poor girl. That's so sad.
It seems that she had been experiencing a lot of stress prior to the dance, like as she was waiting for it, and then at the dance, and that's when the twitching started. So the mental health experts here concluded that it was Helen's subconscious addressing her distress about dancing by producing this painful twitch in her leg to get her out of the anxiety-producing situation.
Wow. So psychosomatic?
Psychosomatic.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm. I like that you know that word.
I know it because of you. I'm not even joking.
So then why was everyone twitching? Like they weren't all embarrassed about dancing.
Right.
Or losing their boyfriends.
That is interesting. That does remind me of one other episode that we've done.
Which episode?
The Dancing Plague, one of our OG episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. You are onto something here because it turns out that the twitching, similar to the dancing plague, likely spread due to a psychological and sociological phenomenon known as mass hysteria.
Oh, right.
That's what happened in the dancing plague.
Yes.
Mass hysteria, it's also, I guess, more officially called mass psychogenic illness, or MPI, is basically when a group of people start experiencing physical symptoms and intense emotions for no evident reason. Like, again, there's no medical cause.
Just because.
Mm-hmm. It's like a wave of panic or worry spreads through the group.
Oh my God.
And the subconscious kind of takes over. And it's been happening for centuries, right? The dancing plague is an OG episode where they believe the same thing was going on there. And this is more likely to happen, mass hysteria, during times of sort of like larger ecological distress.
Ecological distress?
Like the community, the larger system. You know, the United States, there was a lot of stress. In the world, there was a lot of stress.
Right, yeah, like the brink of war, like economic depression. I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. I can't recall what external stressor may have been going on during the dancing plague, but I just feel like you're medieval peasants. That's stressful.
Yeah. I mean, medieval peasants, American workers, today, about the same, levels of stress.
Yeah.
That's why I'm also kind of like, I could see it happening today and I wouldn't even be surprised.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Particularly the last few years, we've had so many historical moments and they haven't been fun ones.
They haven't been the good ones, guys. Steph and I were reminiscing recently about 2020 and New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, like 2019, 2020 specifically. And I just remember saying to her, like, yeah, 2020 is going to be our year.
Fatal last words.
Dude, it really was. Sorry, I just wanted to share that funny, dark anecdote.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So once the word got out, the psychologist started telling people that the twitching was psychosomatic. It stopped almost as quickly as it started.
So they just said, guys, this is all in your head, and it stopped?
Mm-hmm. The people of Bellevue slowly began to reclaim their lives. And then I think within maybe a couple months, the twitching vanished altogether. No one was twitching anymore.
So does that work usually if a psychologist or a psychiatrist, tells someone it's all in your head and then they'll stop?
I don't think they would use those words, but I think if you can provide an explanation to someone as to why this may be happening, it can definitely help. And then the other key thing to do here is to give them some sort of distraction.
I see.
Because part of what happens is like your leg's twitching and you don't know why. You've been under a lot of stress, your leg's twitching, you don't know why. And that's giving you more anxiety because you can't control your twitching. And that anxiety is going to perpetuate more twitching. So they just kind of keep feeding into each other.
Oh, like a terrible positive feedback loop. You know what's wild is that the brain can actually control that. The brain can literally just send your body into a frenzy.
Yeah, without your consent almost.
Yeah. What the hell?
There's so much we don't know about the brain.
That's absolutely wild.
It's fascinating.
Oof.
So that was the twitching epidemic
of
1939. We are now going to segue into a laughing epidemic.
A laughing epidemic? I would be screwed in this. I love to laugh. I laugh all the time.
That's so
true. I would be so screwed, guys.
So true.
Oh, oof. Okay. Good thing I don't live in Tanzania then.
How did you know it was Tanzania?
Didn't you say it?
No.
Oh, I looked at your screen then.
I knew it. I told you that you look at my notes during the episodes and I don't like it.
I do it subconsciously. I don't even try. I just see words on a screen. I'm like, oh, I'm going to read it, you know? It's not even like I'm thinking about it. It just happens.
I'm done with your excuses. Okay.
Oh my God.
Yes. The laughing epidemic occurs in Tanzania. So we're switching locations here. And this happened, it started in January of 1962.
Okay, so a little bit later, a couple decades later.
This is, again, what I think is interesting. This is in a small rural community, but it's at a British-run boarding school. The school is named, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, Asha.
In Tanzania, remind me, is that like just an island off the coast of Australia? Am I thinking, is that right? No.
Tanzania is a country in Africa, in the continent.
Wow, I'm thinking of something completely different. Never mind.
That's okay. This area is known as the Lake Victoria area. And at this point in time, in 1962, Tanzania was actually called Tanganyika.
Oh, okay.
Again, I apologize. I don't know how to say that. But that's important. It'll come up later on. So on this day in January 1962, Tanzania, boarding school, all girls. 3 girls start laughing in class, probably because of a joke someone made.
Right.
And they get in trouble, but they can't stop laughing. And I think we've all experienced that moment when you're laughing so hard with a friend that just the fact that you're laughing makes you laugh more.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that's how I envision this starting.
So this reminds me of the time where I just had surgery and I was high off laughing gas. And I was laughing because obviously it's laughing gas, right? And I remember the nurse telling me, no, you can't laugh. You're going to like break your sutures or whatever.
Because this was an oral surgery?
It was an oral surgery. Yeah, I had my wisdom teeth out. But she said, don't laugh. And it made me laugh even harder. Like, yes. I remember that. Like, it's kind of foggy. And I just remember being like, yeah, fight the power, and just start laughing.
That's
I was
wild.
in a dentist's office. What power am I fighting here?
Who knows?
Probably the power, fighting the power to stay up past 12.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was like 16 at the time.
We bring up a good point that when you tell someone not to do something, it makes you want to do it. So in one of my psych courses in undergrad, the professor like walks in and he's like, no one think about a pink elephant.
Aww.
And then he's like, you all thought about a pink elephant, right? And we're like, yeah. So that's what happens here. That may have been what happened with the girls and their laughter. So this gets more bizarre than the 3 girls, though. The fit of laughing spreads to their classmates. And it spreads really fast. 60% of the students become uncontrollable in their laughter.
Oh my God.
And then some of the girls who are experiencing this laughter are also having a lot of physical pain. You know, like when your stomach hurts from laughing, your abs, they can't breathe well. They have respiratory issues. A few girls fainted and a few girls had rashes start spreading over their bodies.
Oh my gosh. So this one's worse. It's not just the twitching.
Mm-hmm.
This has other issues going on.
Imagine you're in pain and there's like a rash and you can't stop laughing. That feels maddening.
Right. Did doctors take a look at them?
Mm-hmm. Psychologists, doctors, and scientists from all over the country were all called in, and they were at a loss to explain what was happening. Again, they looked into toxins, environmental factors. Nothing seemed to be causing it. All the girls were given like blood tests. They all came back normal.
Mm-hmm.
They're all healthy. The environment's healthy. They can't figure out what this is.
Oh, wow. So they didn't have any traces of toxins on them or in them?
No.
Whoa. That's weird.
So the laughing goes on for 3 months with no answers. 60% of a school laughing uncontrollably for 3 months.
I mean, what do you do? I mean, how does someone just continuously laugh that long? Like, you need to eat, you need to sleep, and they're just laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
In March, the school gives up trying to help these girls, and they send the girls home to their families and their communities all over the country because it's a boarding school, so they all come from different parts of Tanzania.
Oh, no, and they spread it, don't they?
Yes.
Oh, my God, no.
Yes, that's exactly what happens. Their families and neighbors start uncontrollably laughing as well. It even spread to other schools.
Oh, shit.
Don't look at my notes, you little cheater.
I'm not looking, I promise.
How long do you think this goes on for?
I'm not looking at your notes. I'm looking up.
Mm-hmm.
6 months?
No, 1.5 years.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot longer. Man, they just need me. I just gotta go and tell them it's all in your head. That's $500, please. Thanks.
$500.
Yeah.
The uncontrollable laughter here was mainly seen in young people.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly seen in girls. I will get to that later. But there were older folks in the community and men, like adult men, who also caught the laughing bug. In all, 14 schools had to be shut down.
For laughter.
For laughter.
And then now I'm laughing.
Right? And at least 1,000 people were afflicted.
That's wild. All because of one little girl.
Or a group of 3 girls.
Or a group of 3 girls, I'm sorry. Yes.
Mm-hmm. People showed, again, a variety of symptoms. People were very restless and irritated at this, as you can imagine. But thankfully, there were no fatalities.
Right.
No one actually couldn't eat and starved to death, or no one choked to death or anything. It was just extremely uncomfortable.
I can imagine someone has been laughing for 1.5 years. That would be your stomach muscles would be really strong though.
Yeah, the little girls have 6-packs at the end of this.
Oh yeah, they're just shredded. Because they didn't eat, they're constantly using those muscles. They're shredded. They're in peak summer season.
Oh my God.
Sounds like a great thing.
Anyway.
And that is how Andrew got canceled.
So the school where the original laughing started, the Kashasha school, it was sued for allowing the children and their parents to transmit this disease to the surrounding area.
Quote unquote disease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? That's how, I think that puts into context how helpless and angry people were.
I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it.
In this case, I don't know if at some point anyone explained or explored the possibility of mass hysteria or having it be psychosomatic. I really don't know. The way that this was portrayed in the research that I did was that it's just these waves of laughter kept rippling through different communities until it died down on its own naturally. That's why it went on for so long. There was no intervention done.
Not like in the first story.
Not that I saw, not that I'm aware of. It's the only recorded case of mass hysteria to this degree, like in terms of number of people afflicted, and for this amount of time.
Wow.
A year and a half. This is the most intense case of it, I guess you could say.
Oh my God. Jeez. That's wild.
Yeah. Experts who have assessed this bizarre and epidemic and more, They do think, experts today, I should say, I apologize. They do think this would qualify, like I said, as the largest case of mass psychogenic illness or mass hysteria. But they were still trying to figure out what triggered it.
Right.
Why at this time, why these little girls.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to get into.
Okay.
The most plausible explanation here for, 1,000 people throughout Tanzania coming down with a laughing bug is that it probably goes back before the laughing even started with what happened in the country in the months leading up to this.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I was going to ask, is it because of the Cold War, threat of nuclear annihilation? What's going on with these little girls' heads?
Well, in late 1961, so remember this happened in January of 62.
Right.
In late 1961, Tanzania/Tanganyika gained independence for the first time in 40 years.
Oh, wow.
It was previously a British colony.
Right.
They gained their independence, and I believe they became a socialist country. And while gaining your independence sounds like a good thing, it also meant that absolutely everything that these people were used to got flipped upside down. And you had entirely new systems in place that you didn't have before.
Right. That's a really good way of looking at it. It doesn't matter if you think it's better or worse than before. It's just radically different. And that just kind of flips a switch in your head, right?
Yeah. I put in my notes that change feels like uncertainty. And uncertainty is really stressful for humans. We don't like the unknown.
We really don't. We almost accept terrible conditions because at least that's what is out there versus the unknown. It could be much better, but you don't know. It could be much worse.
Exactly.
And I feel like when it comes to risk, humans are very, very conservative.
We got such ancient little brains.
Yeah, exactly. The fear of ostracism,
They're just trying to keep us safe.
Exactly.
So they believe that the really big shift in the country and the fact that, unfortunately, in so many social structures, the most helpless population is kids.
Always.
And in a very patriarchal country, it's going to be little girls, even more so. So they think that this sort of feeling of uncertainty and helplessness is what triggered the laughing epidemic.
Yeah, much more I think acute versus the first story, which seemed more broad. Economic malaise mixed with prospect of world war.
This was much more specific to their country and their reality. You're right. Well, now I want to share what we know about mass psychogenic illness.
Ooh, fun.
/ mass hysteria. And let me start off by saying there's a ton we don't know.
Of course.
Of course.
I feel like history for weirdos in general, we go for things that not a lot is known about. Ancient history, mass psychogenic illness, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But there are patterns that have been studied over time. So that's what we'll get into. When you're looking at cases of MPI, we see that throughout history, adolescents, so teens and children, are much more likely to be affected than adults.
I guess that makes sense.
They're more impressionable, you could say. Their prefrontal cortex isn't done developing. That might play into it. And there's also a couple of hypotheses that people who are prone to being extroverted and people who are prone to being more neurotic are more susceptible.
Oh, wow. So I'm screwed.
I was thinking the same thing, but I wasn't going to say it. If you were a little girl, you'd be so screwed.
Man, this is the banger of an episode. Oh my God.
So in general, for mass hysteria, symptoms also tend to be repetitive. People will report headaches, dizziness, nausea, pain. Hyperventilation will happen. People experience anxiety, rashes, and itching.
Oh.
That's very, very common.
Okay.
Doesn't sound fun.
It doesn't sound fun at all. It sounds awful. It sounds terrible.
In more modern cases, experts have seen that if there's intense media coverage around a case of MPI, it'll exacerbate the symptoms.
Great.
So don't do media coverage when you hear about these stories.
Yeah, well,
in real time.
Yeah, the media would absolutely cover it though.
I know.
Them. Even if they knew that, they'd still cover it.
Damn, that's sad.
Yeah.
Well, to go to like what exactly causes this is the best theory that I saw. Because MPIs, mass psychogenic illness, are triggered by what folks see and hear. So I see you laughing uncontrollably, I hear you laughing uncontrollably, and then I do it. They really believe that there's a link between experiencing MPI and our mirror neurons.
Right.
And just for anyone who maybe isn't aware, mirror neurons are a special kind of brain cell that light up when you do something, like throwing a ball. But they also light up when you watch someone else do something, like you watch someone else throw a ball.
Like we're trying to like almost mimic what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Mimic's a harsh word, but like copy it.
Yeah. This is why yawns are contagious.
Oh my gosh, yawns are contagious.
Mm-hmm. When you watch someone yawn and you yawn, it's your mirror neurons lighting up.
But a disproportional amount of psychopaths don't have that, right?
I don't know if that's just like a Reddit theory.
That might be just a Reddit theory.
Or like a meme theory.
Yeah.
I actually have no idea.
I know, because it's not like you can be like, calling all psychopaths, we need to do a study.
And then you just yawn in front of them.
Yeah, exactly.
But basically, it's like your brain is mirroring the other person, hence mirror neurons, right?
Excellent.
And what's interesting is that these neurons don't just light up when you see like a physical action. They also, like if your mirror neuron is activated, you're watching someone else, their leg is twitching. It also sends out messages to more emotional parts of the brain and can trigger feelings of like, you might feel what the other person's probably feeling, like, oh, they're experiencing anxiety and dread, and so am I right now.
Wow.
And this is why they believe mirror neurons really relate to empathy and someone's capacity for empathy. So when we see someone experiencing something and you feel what they're feeling or you do what they're doing, you're just being empathetic.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a nice person.
Maybe the psychopath theory does hold some weight then.
Yeah, you're right.
They don't feel empathy.
No, that's totally a good point. And the reason that I want to bring this up is in these two cases, what was something in common?
The mass hysteria?
Yeah, when these cases initiated, when they first started, can you think of anything that they have in common?
Young girls?
Mm-hmm. They think that young girls are more prone to being exposed to an MPI because so far in the research, women appear to have a larger number of mirror neurons.
Right, and that's why women are typically seen as more empathetic.
They don't know if this is genetic or social. Are women socialized because the neuroplasticity? Are we socialized to develop more mirror neurons? Or is there a genetic predisposition? It's probably both.
I feel like this episode is a perfect like marriage of like your two passions, like history and psychology.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Here I am like, oh, wow. I'm like, duh, of course you did this on purpose. No, that's amazing.
I thought this would be interesting.
No, it's super interesting.
You identified earlier a previous example of mass psychogenic illness that I covered.
Yes.
There's another one that I've covered. Can you think of what it is? And I'll give you the hint that it does start off with young girls.
Could it be the Salem witch trials?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
The Salem witch trials are often studied as a case of MPI.
That one's worse, though. That one's the worst.
That one's the worst because it obviously resulted in a lot of unjust deaths.
Yeah. Which I think the state of Massachusetts finally apologized in was the late 20th century or maybe even in the 2000s sometime. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. They should apologize. That's good to know. And that one makes so much sense because of the culture that they were in was so tense and repressive, and there was so much fear around Satan.
Right.
And witchcraft that who's going to be more impressionable, more susceptible? That's going to be the teens that think this is happening to them.
I know. And you're right. And it was young women.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't
not exclusively, but mostly.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I wonder if the dancing plague had disproportionate amount of women, especially young women.
Question. It's a good question.
I mean, that was the 16th century, so that's not gonna.
I don't know if they would have kept records of 3 men, 7 women.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. People couldn't even read.
You said that with such disdain.
They couldn't even read.
Oh my God.
That's because their monarchs didn't want them to read, to be fair.
Fair.
But historical cases of mass hysteria, like the twitching and laughing epidemics, I think they're really interesting because they show just how easily we can get caught up in a wave of shared emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fascinating and very humbling to remember.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting to see how feelings, beliefs, and even physical symptoms can be spread in between people, particularly if times are uncertain or scary.
Yes.
And it's a good reminder to think critically, to have open communication, right? To share information with people. Because in the first case, just telling them, oh, this is probably psychosomatic, treated it.
Right, exactly. No, and also I think that's really good life advice in general,
mm-hmm.
right? Thinking critically, thinking from different angles, communicating what you're thinking. That can alleviate, I think, a lot of problems. And I think if the world did that, we would not have nearly the violence that we have today.
Wow. Mic drop.
I mean, it's kind of obvious.
No, you're absolutely right.
Right.
I was just thinking, why are these cases interesting? But you're absolutely right. Those things are applicable to just human history. Right,
exactly. Even contentious topics like politics or religion or something, if you just talk about it and you don't assume malintent, you just assume ignorance, right? As opposed to anything just inherently devious. I think if everyone were to do that, first of all, I think again, a lot of problems would disappear. Also, I think a lot of us would realize, hey, wait a minute, the elites that run our country don't have our best interest in mind. Huh, interesting. But anyways, moving on. I think the world would be a better place.
I agree.
Mic drop, yeah.
I'm pretty sure everyone listening agrees because...
That's true.
You're history lovers.
Yeah, you're history lovers. You know that the government isn't on your side most of the time.
Oh, that's not what I was talking about.
Oh, but yeah. Also,
a lot
of that becomes from mistrust of government, but yeah.
I was going to say you're history lovers, so you know the importance of thinking critically.
Exactly.
And learning about other human stories.
Yeah, I love that. That's a much better way of looking at it, I think.
And that, weirdos, is the case of a laughing and a twitching epidemic.
Wow, that was incredible. I think I may have heard the first one in passing or something, but I had no idea about the second story, the one in Tanzania.
Oh, really?
Also, it's really bugging me that I thought that Tanzania was off the coast of Australia. I think Tasmania. That's it. Okay, Tasmania.
Where Tasmanian devils are from?
Yes. That's okay. Australians that are listening to this, I really apologize. You've probably been yelling for the last, 20 minutes or so. So
possibly.
Yeah.
My dad used to call me a little Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, you are.
Because the cartoon, he's just a little ball of chaos.
Exactly, and he does a little tornado.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's my ADHD, Dad. That's what you are identifying. Should have gotten me medicated.
Dude, this episode is a banger.
Yeah. And before we say goodbye, let me just share quickly my sources if anyone's interested in learning more. There was a great article in Atlas Obscura, Listverse, How Stuff Works, and the Journal of the Royal Society of Medicine.
Oh, very cool.
I looked at an article called Mass Psychogenic Illnesses and the Social Network. Is it changing the pattern of outbreaks? So this looked at historical cases and tried to see how social media is contributing to more not covert cases of mass psychogenic illness.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
I mean, I feel like that type of those talking points, I mean, deserve almost like an entire podcast series. Like social media and the influence of it on especially young like people's brains.
I'll get on it.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
You have to do that.
And then, of course, Wikipedia. Lots of information on there. And that's my episode.
Oh, Steph, I loved that episode. That was absolutely incredible. I definitely feel like that was a worthwhile successor to The Dancing Plague, one of our OG and one of our most listened episodes of all time.
You're such a good hype husband. I appreciate you so much.
I do hype you up.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Because you don't hype yourself up enough.
Thanks. You're the best.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, weirdos, that's it. We're not gonna gross you out with our niceties to each other. Ew, I don't like you. So you know the drill, guys. If you haven't already, what are you doing? Go to Instagram and follow us because we do post quite often there, and you sometimes even just our stories. We'll post pictures of Pericles. So if you want to see him, you got to go there. Also, if you haven't signed up for a Patreon, go ahead and do that because you'll be able to vote on the upcoming poll. And if you don't want to do those two things, or you've already done those two things because you're awesome, then don't forget to, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, share an episode with somebody. It helps us grow. Exactly. And also, if you're listening to us on Spotify, go ahead and leave a comment on how you like the episode and what you want to hear next. Because again, I love reading your guys' comments. It really does make my day. Yeah. Yeah. Also, if you're listening on like Apple Podcasts, there's not nearly as many of you. Like, go ahead and share that because we need some more representation on Apple Podcasts too. Help us out. Yes. Well, thank you, weirdos. Until next time. Until next time, weirdos. Adios.